What is up everyone, it's PuNkShoO here with BattleAxe Theater. In our previous video we talked about how to install Nasomi Final Fantasy XI on our Windows PCs. I did mention that we would go over how to install the HD texture packs and get those graphics kind of brought up to speed so that way they actually look pretty decent in modern times. So let's go ahead and jump in. Now that we've got Final Fantasy XI installed, let's go ahead and head over to the HD Overhaul YouTube page where Amelia has provided a Megadump essentially of a bunch of textures that have been created, as well as the ReShade file that we're going to need in order to improve our graphics quality. Now I will post a link to this in the description, so be sure to follow that, and if you're interested in supporting the project, be sure to send Amelia a little donation. She does have a link on her page here. Alright, so you are going to encounter an issue with the Google Cloud where it is going to potentially tell you that they're not able to show a preview because the file is pretty large. I can attest that this is a safe file. It has been scanned several times with different pieces of software, and I am running it on a daily basis. So what you're going to want to do is go ahead and click the download link here. And then we're going to download anyway because again it's going to tell you that it cannot be scanned for viruses because the file is too large, thus the Google software is unable to scan it before it's able to present it to you. So while that's downloading, another thing you may want to do is download an unzipping application. There are many of those out there these days, but I do recommend either 7-zip or pzip. Both of those work for 7-zip files as well as your standard compression files that you would download like standard zips and things like that. Now that we've finished downloading the files that are needed for this HD upgrade, we're going to go ahead and open that with 7-zip. I've gone ahead and done that. And what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to extract our ROMs into our installation directory. However, there is a thing that we want to do first, and that is back up those ROM folders. So that way, in the event that something goes awry in this installation, we don't need to completely reinstall the game. So let's go ahead and open that guy up. And then we're going to locate our Nasomi directory. And then we're going to navigate to Square Enix, Final Fantasy XI, and then this is where you're going to see your ROM folders. I'm going to go ahead and select these three, and I'm going to move them over to the desktop temporarily. Now that we have backed up our ROMs, so that way we have them in the event that something goes awry, we're going to go ahead and go back into our zip software, and we're going to select Mog Houses, the 3 separate ROM folders, Ruan Gardens, and the Sondoria Shops. And we're going to go ahead and extract those to the Final Fantasy directory inside of our Nasomi install. So let's go ahead and navigate there real quick. And make sure you select the Final Fantasy folder. So it's Nasomi, Square Enix, Final Fantasy. And you'll see your ROM folder show up again. Make sure you've got the Final Fantasy selected. And the pathing should look something similar to this depending on where you've installed it. Once that's been done, click OK. And if you did not delete the folders, you merely copied them to back them up, go ahead and click Yes to All. Now what this has done is this has added the HD texture pack to your Final Fantasy installation, and you can essentially launch the game as per usual with those updated textures. But what I'd like to go ahead and do now is talk a little bit about how to set up ReShade, which will convert DirectX 8 to DirectX 9 and give you some better lighting effects that would heavily complement the game with those HD textures installed. In order to get the ReShade set up, the first thing that we're going to need to do is extract our ReShade setup folder. I generally just drag it over to the desktop here, and that way we can launch it from here. Once we've launched the folder, you're going to see there's a README that has pretty detailed instructions on how to set it up. You can follow along with the setup instructions if you like. However, the instructions that I'll be providing in this video pertain specifically to Nasomi. What we're going to do first is we're going to launch our ReShade setup, and we're going to get a pop-up that looks like this. What we need to do is we need to select on Game to install or uninstall, and what we're doing is we're selecting the boot application for Ishida to modify and upgrade to DX9. So what we're going to do then is select DX9 and then yes, and you'll see it starts downloading the files and applying those changes to the boot. Once that installation is finished, we're going to get a pop-up here just advising us what all is installed, and we can remove some of these options or we can add them. But we're going to go ahead and let this be for now and hit OK, and then it's safe to go ahead and close the ReShade installer. What we need to do now is go ahead and take the rest of these files here and place them into our Ashita modified boot directory. Now you don't have to move all of these files if you don't want. These are essentially just pre-configurations for ReShade. I will include a link to a Google Drive for my custom installation, so that way you can go ahead and use that. So we've selected all of these, and then I'm going to go ahead and Control-C to copy, and then we're going to navigate to our Final Fantasy install and go ahead and go back into our Ashita folder. We're going to navigate to FFXI boot mod, and then we're going to paste all this in here. So what all this is going to do is it's going to convert the game to DX8 and then again to DX9. We've got all of our pre-installation setups ready to go, and our ReShade set up and ready to go. So now essentially what we've got is we've got a bunch of different filters, ambient occlusions, ambient lighting, a lot of different things that you didn't have back in the day that you have now, and it's basically converted over so you have some of those niceties to the game, some of those additional flares, if you will. So let's go ahead and get the game launched and do some setup in Ashita to make sure we get the optimal experience. Alright, so we've got the Nasomi Ashita launcher pulled up here. What we're going to want to do first is go into the resolution that we would like to play at. I personally play at 1080p, so we're going to select that. I'm going to click this little pencil here to edit the configuration and select window. The reason why we're going here is what we're going to do is we're going to bump our background resolution up to twice the amount of what our native resolution is. What this does is it takes those textures and kind of condenses them down into a smaller image per pixel, if you will, and makes it look tighter and cleaner and a little bit higher DPI, if you will, than it naturally is. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and update this to 3840 and 2160. Now you can change the menu sizes as well. I prefer a little bit larger menu, so I go with the default menu size. You can apply these same numbers if you prefer the really tiny menus, but I personally can't see them. The window size we're going to leave the same because that's going to fit your native resolution on your monitor if you're at 1080. If you're at 4K, you can do the same thing. This may not even be necessary for 4K because it's already such a high resolution. Once we've done that, click the Save button, and let's go ahead and launch Nasomi. Alright, as you can see here, once we launch Nasomi, you're going to see the ReShade configuration load at the top. We're going to go ahead and get into the game here. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to turn on some FPS monitoring, which is built into the Ashita application for Nasomi Final Fantasy XI. Now you'll see the numbers at the top left of my screen. This is not an add-on that is turned on by default. Once again, this is an add-on that is included with the Nasomi installation and is approved by Nasomi for use on the server. So what you're going to want to do is open up your command line here and type in add-on load FPS. What this does is it loads the add-on. Now you can see here I've already got the add-on turned on by default. There's a script file that you can modify so that way it will include add-ons to turn on automatically, but that is something for a future video. Once we've got the add-on loaded and turned on, we just type /FPS1. What that does is that unlocks our FPS to 60 frames per second. So if you've got a graphics card that can handle that sort of load, which I assume you do if you're installing the HD textures, it will allow you to get that higher frame rate. Now the default frame rate of Nasomi or Final Fantasy in general is 30 frames per second. That's how the game was launched initially. But by using this add-on, we're able to unlock that frame rate to use on our more modern graphics hardware. Now here's a big thing that I have to mention that is not included in the ReShade setup. There's a different key configuration that is provided with the ReShade setup that is in that folder. What we're actually going to do is we're going to press our home key on our Windows keyboards, and that will bring up the ReShade configuration. Now, as you can see here, I've got the PuNkShoO custom INI loaded. I have gone ahead and replaced those other files and just uploaded my custom one. I've went through most of those other ones and I wasn't very happy with the outlook, or the outcome rather. It was mostly either too dark or overemphasized. The HDR wasn't really where I wanted it. So what I did was go ahead and create a custom one. And there are tons of different features in here that you can mess around with. I would recommend taking some time, create your own custom INI file by clicking on this plus button right here. And then go through these settings and just kind of play with them a little bit. Not only can you enable and disable them, but you can also modify those settings. So again, I've included my custom INI here. And what this INI does is it turns on anti-aliasing and adds some vibrance to the game, but allows you to also maintain a fairly decent frame rate. Now, when you first load this, it's going to present you with a continue button and an apply button, if you will, to enable this profile initially. So when you first pull up this screen, it's not the very first thing that you're going to see. But when you're all said and done, you're going to enable this INI, and you'll see a button down here to continue. So when you click on that, it will then apply it. Now, any changes that are made to this particular INI file are saved instantly. So if you were to create your own INI and make any changes and exit the game and re-enter the game, it would keep those settings. So once you're finished here, just hit the home button again to hide it. Now you're running at, hopefully 60 frames per second. My graphics card's struggling a little bit with these effects of the weather. But I hope that you guys found this helpful. And look forward to future videos. I'm going to be moving on to some guide content for in-game, things like leveling in different areas around the world, and we'll be making different alts and deleting them, so that way we can show you guys the level progression to get to Valkyrie Dunes from the different cities. So again, I hope this was helpful. If you liked this video, please be sure to like and comment. If you didn't, hit that dislike button, comment, let us know why you didn't, and be sure to subscribe to our channel if you like these types of videos, because we definitely have a lot more of these coming up. We're going to be covering EverQuest Reborn, as well as Pantheon hype videos and some discussion pieces until the game comes out. Once we have access to that type of content, we'll be producing guide content for that as well. So thank you again for watching, and have yourselves a good one.